How does a dog, a Labrador Rottweiler, mix with no political experience and a documented habit of chasing cars, end up at the center of a Cold War propaganda battle between the United States and Communist China? That's a real question with a real answer. And the story starts in a tiny California town where the locals decided their best candidate for mayor had 4 legs, a tail, and an unwavering commitment to greeting every single person who walked down Main Street. This is the story of Bosco Ramos, the canine mayor of Sunol, California. A dog who kept getting elected, who arguably outperformed his human competition, and who somehow became an international symbol that 2 superpowers fought over. And his story is stranger, funnier, and more revealing than you'd ever expect. So first, how does a dog even end up running for office in the first place? Is this some kind of joke? Well, yes and no. Sunol is an unincorporated community in Alameda County, California. In the early 1980s, it had a population of about 1,500 people. Because it was unincorporated, it didn't have an official government structure. No city council, no formal mayor. But the residents decided they wanted to elect an honorary mayor anyway, someone to represent the spirit of their little town. In 1981, 2 human candidates stepped forward. One ran on a Republican platform. The other ran as a Democrat. And then Brad Lieber, a local resident and the owner of a big, friendly black Labrador Rottweiler mix named Bosco, threw his dog's hat into the ring, or his collar into the ring. However you want to put it. Now here's the thing, Brad didn't do this purely as a joke. He did it partly as a statement about small-town politics, partly because Bosco was genuinely the most popular figure in Sunol. This dog spent his days wandering freely through town, visiting the post office, sitting outside the local saloon, and greeting residents and visitors with the kind of consistent, unconditional enthusiasm that no human politician has ever managed to sustain through an entire term. And the people of Sunol looked at their options, a Republican, a Democrat, and a dog, and they made their choice. Bosco didn't just win once. The residents of Sunol kept reaffirming him as their mayor in subsequent informal elections throughout the 1980s. His tenure stretched from 1981 all the way to 1994. 13 years. 13 years, most human politicians can barely survive one scandal cycle, and this dog held office for over a decade. But here's the question that matters. Why did people keep choosing him? Was this just a running gag that never got old? Not entirely. Bosco's appeal came from something real. He showed up every single day. He was at the post office. He was at the general store. He walked the streets, and he was available to every single resident, regardless of their background, their politics, or their opinions. There was no partisan agenda. There was no corruption. There was no broken promise. Bosco ran on a platform of being present, being friendly, and being consistent, and the voters of Sunol decided that was more than enough. His campaign slogan, by the way, was reportedly a bone in every dish, a cat in every tree, and a fire hydrant on every corner, which honestly is a better slogan than most of what you hear during actual election seasons. Okay, so here's the question skeptics always ask. Was Bosco actually effective? Can a dog genuinely serve a civic function? And the answer is surprisingly yes. Now obviously Bosco wasn't signing legislation or managing a budget. Sunol's honorary mayor position didn't come with those kinds of powers. But what it did come with was visibility, and Bosco used that, or rather his existence provided that, in ways that genuinely benefited the town. Tourism increased. People came from all over California and eventually from around the world specifically to visit the town with the dog mayor. Local businesses saw more foot traffic. The town's identity crystallized around something charming and memorable. Sunol went from being an anonymous dot on a map to a place with a story, a personality, a brand, all because of one dog. Bosco also served as a kind of social glue. In a small community, having a shared symbol that everyone agrees on is actually incredibly valuable. There were no Bosco opponents. There was no anti-Bosco faction. He unified the town in a way that no human mayor, with human opinions and human flaws and human enemies, ever could have. And when Bosco passed away in 1994, the town mourned him genuinely. They later erected a life-sized bronze statue of him, in front of the Sunol post office. It's still there today. Go look it up. A bronze dog stands in front of a post office in California because an entire town loved their mayor that much. Now here's where the story takes its wildest turn. How does a small-town dog mayor become a piece of Cold War ammunition? In 1990, the Chinese newspaper People's Daily, which was and still is an official publication of the Chinese Communist Party, ran an article about Bosco. They used his election as evidence that Western democracy was a sham. Their argument was essentially, look at this. Americans let a dog become mayor. This is what happens when you give people the right to vote. This is the failure of democracy laid bare. The residents of Sunol did not take this lying down. They organized a protest outside the Chinese consulate in San Francisco, and, this is completely true, they brought Bosco with them. The protest happened shortly after the Tiananmen Square massacre, and the Sunol residents held signs that read, "Don't walk the dog," while Bosco stood among them, presumably unaware that he had become a geopolitical chess piece. The contrast was sharp and deliberate. The people of Sunol were making a point. In our country, we can elect whoever we want, even a dog, and nobody gets hurt. Nobody gets imprisoned. Nobody gets run over by a tank. A dog mayor isn't a failure of democracy. It might actually be proof that democracy is working exactly as intended, because the people chose freely and they chose joy. It was one of the most unexpectedly profound political statements of the late 20th century, and it was made by a small town standing behind a dog. So Bosco's story raises an obvious question. Is he the only one? Or is electing animals to office something humans just keep doing? The answer is, we absolutely keep doing it. In Talkeetna, Alaska, a cat named Stubbs served as honorary mayor for nearly 20 years, from 1997 until his death in 2017. Stubbs held court at a local general store, drank water out of a wine glass, and was reportedly the victim of an assassination attempt by a dog, which sounds like political intrigue straight out of a thriller. In Cormorant, Minnesota, a Great Pyrenees named Duke was elected mayor multiple times, winning his elections by landslides each time. His platform was identical to Bosco's. Show up, be friendly, don't steal anything. Down in Lajitas, Texas, a beer-drinking goat named Clay Henry served as mayor, and his lineage continued. Clay Henry Jr. and Clay Henry III also held the office, creating what might be the only animal political dynasty in American history. And perhaps the most statistically impressive animal candidacy happened in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in 1959, when a rhinoceros named Cacareco received over 100,000 votes in a city council election, making her the top vote-getter. She won as a protest against corruption, with voters choosing a rhino over every human candidate on the ballot. There is clearly a pattern here. Across different countries, different decades, and different species, humans keep looking at the political options in front of them and deciding that an animal would do a better job. So what are we actually looking at when we look at all of these stories? It's easy to laugh. And you should laugh. A beer-drinking goat mayor is objectively funny, but underneath the humor, there's something honest happening. When people elect an animal to office, they're not being stupid. They're making a deliberate statement. They're saying that loyalty matters more than rhetoric, that presence matters more than promises, that maybe, just maybe, the qualities we actually want in a leader are simpler than we've been led to believe. Show up, be consistent, don't lie to us, care about the people around you. Bosco did all of that. He did it for 13 years, and a whole town loved him for it. There's a bronze statue of a dog in Sunol, California, that has outlasted the legacies of most human politicians from the same era. I think that says something worth sitting with. If this story made you think, or smile, or want to look up a bronze dog statue on Google Maps, I'd genuinely love to have you around here more often. Come back for the next one, and if you feel like subscribing, well, Bosco would approve. He never turned anyone away.